So this is our fourth webinar, and every webinar keeps getting more and more interesting, and to a large extent, that's a big thank you to you for egging us on and for giving us all your feedback and being very generous with your praise as well as your thoughts. And so this webinar is a break from the normal, where we thought that we have so many teachers in this forum, over 1,000 have registered, and there is so much of learning to share as well as learning to have. And today, as you can see, we have an august panel of teachers from across India. And I can't wait to begin with today's session, more so because not only are there 6 speakers, there are so many questions in so many areas that we really want to get through to you today. I'm sharing this particular slide with you because we're talking English language, we're talking drama, we're talking communication skills, and really a lot of what we are talking about in terms of the areas that we teach is not lived in a book, it comes alive. So from page to stage, this is what we all do. And as teachers, it's also good to remember that after 2 weeks, we tend to remember just 10% of what we read, and 20% of what we hear, and 30% of what we see, and 50% of what we see and hear. And the active learning really starts when we affirm and we say, yes, we can do it. And more importantly, when we get up, say we can do it, and actually start to do it. And this whole session, and indeed all our webinars, are dedicated to inspiring you to go out there and do it day after day like you've been doing, and try and add a notch or two every day to be better teachers, better learners, and so on. To go back into history, I think it was Confucius who said, I see and I forget, I hear and I remember, I do and I understand. So all that we're talking about today, teachers, is all about what we can not just understand, but what we most importantly must also do. On that note, today's webinar will kind of follow 3 main storylines, where we get to hear from all the panelists a little bit about their stories and their experiences and where it all began. And then, of course, a little bit about when it actually did begin. What was it like? What were the stumbling blocks? How did it grow? And so on. And then, of course, all of us can always do with some reflection and lessons that we've learned for future implementation. And we're going to discuss this all, of course, within the context of perspectives. All right, perspectives of teachers, perspective of society, perspectives of parents, and of course, our learners and our students. So we're going to look at it from a multi-dimensional aspect as well. On that note, I think it's time to introduce the first panelist, and a very, very well-known name within certainly the city of Mumbai. Please make welcome Anita Dastur from Center Stage. Anita is based in Mumbai. She heads her own training facility called Center Stage with Anita Dastur, and she prepares candidates in speech and drama, communication, the graded English spoken exams for Trinity College London. She's been teaching since 1982, and it's so good to have a photograph of hers as well, because in fact, all our speakers today, with the exception of quite possibly Sachin and myself, don't look a day over 19 perhaps. But Anita was also appointed an examiner for Jessie in 2008, and she works with young learners as well as teenagers and working professionals and teachers. She has an LTCL in speech and drama, and of course a bachelor's in commerce. I think those words written, or that quote that is attributed to her, which she's shared, is regardless of how you come to start your beginning as a drama and communications educator, the main thing to remember is no matter how hard it gets, the positives of being a coach to hundreds, if not thousands of pupils working with the Trinity College London syllabi, during your career far outweighs the negative. So this is great perspective to kind of set the tone also for this discussion. Welcome, Anita, and thank you for giving of your time. I'd like to also introduce you to Dushyant Gunashekhar from Kriya Shakti, Chennai. Dushyant is the founder and chief mentor of Kriya Shakti and the CEO of Kriya Play. Kriya Shakti is a collective of 25 full-time professional theater artists who actually go out and teach. And over the last 7 years, they've taught more than 100,000 students in 60 plus schools. In fact, Kriya Shakti in the south of India really pioneered as building theater into the core curriculum to have an inclusive approach for children to be able to develop creativity, critical thinking, collaboration, and confidence. Dushyant and the organization work with experts to actually enhance children's cognitive, physical, social, and language skills using theater. Dushyant is also a qualified chartered accountant and holds an ATCL in speech and drama from Trinity College London. He has authored more than 36 books for children in the area of drama, which are of course available on Amazon. And his latest venture, Kriya Play, is an interesting app that provides online lessons with experts in theater and also hundreds of original plays created for Indian audiences. Welcome, Dushyant, and thank you for joining us. Our third teacher joins us today from Pune. Please make welcome Kimberly Tracy. She's known almost everywhere as Tracy, so I'm going to just stick to that and say welcome, Tracy. Tracy studied at La Martiniere Girls College in Lucknow. She was the apple of the teacher's eye, so to speak, and after studying over there, also went back to teach over there. In addition to teaching at St. Felix, St. Mary's, and the Bishop School in Pune. She founded Vocal, which is her outfit that teaches, and they have multiple branches in Pune and soon to be coming up other states as well. Since 2005, she's trained more than 10,000 students who have prepared for exams. In addition to a TTC, she also has a professional certificate in communication skills at which she scored 97% from Trinity College London. Tracy trains children, adults, and teaches at all levels in acting, speaking, communication skills, and group drama. She also trains for Trinity's language assessments. Welcome, Tracy. Good to have you with us. We next have a dear colleague of mine, Kiran Shetty, who's in addition to being the founder of Eloquent, is also an academic consultant with Trinity College London. She has, in fact, there was space running out for all the qualifications, so that's why I had to put 2, but she has an ECC Ed, a B.Ed, and 2 masters in clinical psychology and English literature, and 2 more in the pipeline, if I may add. She began her 10-year teaching career at St. Gregorius in Mumbai in 1995. And in 98 and 2001, she started an after-school activity center called Lilliputians for children, and then of course, Club Elves for English language skills. Between 2005 and 2007, she was the lead facilitator at the Wadi School, Rajkot, and led the implementation of the Riverside curriculum based on multiple intelligence. In 2009, she founded Eloquent, which is an outfit that teaches academic and occupational English. Just like Anita, Kiran was also an examiner between 2008 and 2017 for Trinity College London on the graded exams for spoken English. She's registered with CIOFF, and this is an insight kind of nugget, which is the International Council of Organization of Folklore Festivals and Folklore Arts. She has stewarded, she's a trained and qualified dancer and has stewarded on behalf of India, 23 countries. The CIOFF is part of the India's affiliation to UNESCO. So her troupe was called Kala Aradhana, and of course, Kiran is not just a good dancer, but a very talented teacher in the other areas as well. Welcome, Kiran. If there's a name also synonymous with Trinity in Mumbai, just like Anita, it's Pervin Wadia of Intrinsic Expressions, Mumbai. Pervin holds a licentiate diploma from Trinity College London in speech and drama. She started her journey with these subjects in school under the tutelage of the prolific Hima Devi, who I also for a very brief time was able to work under. and then of course went on to study under the able guidance of two superlative senior teachers, Ms. Jair Gada and Mrs. Mera Vakil. Since 1984, she has trained students in presentation and communication skills, drama, and other voice, speech, and performance-related subjects. In 1990, she went down the corporate way, training and teaching spoken English, and is very heavily involved with the call center training industry as a facilitator and trainer since 2000. Intrinsic Expressions was founded in 2001. Pervin, interestingly, and she will talk a little bit about this, follows the whole person approach to training and development. She's also been very active in the advertising and theater fraternity all along, including areas like stage management and lighting. Welcome, Pervin, and thank you for joining us today. Our last, but not the least, senior teacher from the country is also another dear colleague of mine, Vaishali Chakravarti, the founder of Joy of Drama based in Delhi and who's also an academic consultant with Trinity College London. Vaishali is trained extensively in traditional and contemporary theatre forms under great Manipuri physical theatre masters like Sabriti Devi and Hesnam Kanayalal. Vaishali holds an ATCL in speech and drama and an LTCL in performance arts from Trinity College London. She has attended the Shakespeare Summer School at the Royal Academy of Dramatic Art, or RADA, in London. She's also attended International Drama Teachers Conference at the Royal National Theatre in London. She is the founder of Joy of Drama, and she has trained scores of students and teachers from remote villages to several of the leading schools across. Ladies and gentlemen, that brings to an end our 6 very senior, talented teaching professionals who are joining us this afternoon. A very warm welcome to all 6 of you. If I may request you to please unmute your cameras so that everyone can also see you. This afternoon, I am joined by a very senior colleague of mine, who is the General Manager for Trinity College London, India, is Sachin Das. Sachin, in addition to being the General Manager, is also quite the musician. He's a master tuner of the piano, also plays violin, and generally pulls all the strings to keep us all together in Trinity College London, India, and the subcontinent. So this, ladies and gentlemen, and my dear teachers, is your panel today. Just to remind you, the cone of learning, remember, it's not just about listening, it's also about applying all that you get to hear today. On that note, I think it's time to throw open the floor, where we're talking about their stories and their experiences. And I'm now going to stop sharing my screen so that you get to see all of us. And I'm going to shoot off my first question to Anaita. Anaita, 1982. This is pre-liberalization time in India. What was it like back then? Was these subjects still considered a remnant of the Raj? And how have you taken it from there, bridged almost 4 generations to make the subject center stage, yourself and Trinity, all institutions in themselves? Where did it begin? You'll have to unmute your mic, please. May I request all of you, please unmute your mics, or rather keep it mute when you're not speaking, so that everybody can hear. Yes, Anaita.
Yes, sorry. So it all began when I was actually 6 years old, when I had my first drama teacher. Fondly, we called her Auntie Jo. And I think it's because of this very base that I have managed to be a drama teacher for the last 30 years and more. 1982 was when I first started teaching with Auntie Jo. And that was something like a trophy for me, because in those days, we looked at teachers in a very different context. Today, things have changed, I think. But for me, Auntie Jo was the whole and soul of drama at that time. Her class was called the band class, actually, because we also learned to play musical instruments.
All right.
But yeah, and the drum and the triangle and the Indian bells and all of that. And then from there started my real journey. So after Auntie just stopped teaching after grade 5, I had nowhere to go. And then I was introduced to another absolutely great teacher, that was Mera Vakil, again, fondly called as Auntie Mera. And from there, I realized that this was the only thing I wanted to do. I had no other choice ever in my life. And I don't think I want to stop even in the future.
Well, quite evidently, because I think your little quote as part of the profile kind of said it all.
Yeah.
Thank you, Anahita. So if I could just take that a little bit further to Pervin, because I can see that your teachers are quite common. Both of you have common teachers and you've kind of branched out from there. So Pervin, carrying forward from what Anahita has been telling about her learning experience, now translating that into a personalized teaching experience, how has that journey been to you? Because this is quite a long time you guys have been doing.
So like Anahita, I started very young. I was exposed to an additional teacher, luckily for me, that was Hima Devi. And as Dale said, she was prolific and she had fabulous energy and she passed her passion on to us. So I think I started way back then. I must have been, what, 9 or something to that effect. And yeah, like I think I pretty much knew what I wanted to do then itself, as strange though it may sound today. Yes, there was a certain lack of choices, as Dale kind of implied, in the sense that it was not so wide open a playing field as it is today. There is so much more choice that children have today, which we didn't in those days. Well, we had some choice, of course, but much, much less than kids have today. However, like I said, for me, it was pre-decided and or preordained or whatever it may be. And yes, so the transition from student to teacher was actually very, very organic, both for Anahita and for me, because we both started assisting our teacher very, very young. I was just out of school. So the day I finished school, I started assisting Auntie Ja, and the rest is history.
History, as they say.
Yeah. So the teaching qualification kind of developed organically. So I didn't go through a phase where I had to say, okay, now I need to go into teacher training or anything like that. You know, so for me it was kind of very, very organic. So I went through college assisting. I went through college also performing, acting, doing bits of lighting, all kinds of stage, because I thought that was important also from the point of view of qualification. Yes, of course, my teacher pointed me in the direction of these areas too. However, I think for me, it was just very interesting for one, because that's what I really wanted to do. And again, I thought it was important and necessary to be able to understand all aspects of the theater, to be able to teach. My teacher once said a very wise thing to me, my senior teacher, Mrs. Vakil. You can direct if you can perform. So there was at one point a bit of a thing about, do you want to do direction, or do you want to do acting, do you want to perform? Or, so she put this point across to me very clearly, that if you're a good performer, you by default be a decent director. However, it doesn't necessarily apply the other way around.
Absolutely.
So I kind of use that as a start point for myself.
Excellent.
And the rest just went on.
Yeah. So I know both you and Anahita are both Mumbai based, but if I can just go south of the country to Dushanth. Dushanth, Bombay from day one has kind of had this appeal with Trinity and drama. In many ways, what you've done is being able to break through with, from what I recall, 60 schools, all right, and to have it built into the curriculum. How easy was it day one? And is it getting easier along the way since when you started that kind of an approach?
Firstly, thanks for having me, Sachin and Dale, and wishes to everyone who've joined in. I hope everyone is safe all over the country and the world. And well, to answer your question, yes, it's become progressively easier to make people aware of what exactly the benefits are in terms of what the drama and performing arts could provide as a curricular learning experience, be it within the institution or perhaps even after school, which we both, which is the way in which children reach out to these classes. And I think you started by comparing the culture in Mumbai versus perhaps what's down here, down south. And Mumbai is already, in a sense, Mumbai has a vibrant culture for taking to the arts as compared to Chennai. I don't think it's like as if Chennai didn't have people open to going for these things. It's just that they had to be packaged in a culturally relevant format that resonated with the audiences here in Chennai. I think, and of course, the learnings and what they take away from the whole thing. And that's the beauty of the arts, isn't it? It's not like as if a person reading science in Mumbai and science here ultimately is assessed on the same quantitative aspect. But over here, we have to kind of move with, the starting point and the end point, point A to point B in the learning process is different from, geographically and from person to person. So in effect, what we had to do and make life easier for us rather than going to sell what we are all about to the people of Chennai and Tamil Nadu was to just define what the point A to point B with the numbers that started, and define it individualistic. And that's how we began. And when they realized that this is about finding their own voice and not about imbibing something that, like you mentioned, from the 1982s, a colonial Raj of sorts, education. But it's about finding their own voice. And that when we took that to our audiences and our students and our parents, they were far more welcoming of it and have been more welcoming of it of late. And I think now it's more than anything, especially in the post-COVID world, to just extend on that question, is it in the necessity of having drama-based and performance-based learning is now higher than ever and more relevant than ever before, because ultimately the science, the maths, everything can help cognitive development, but in a world without social interaction, this is the only tool that will allow for social interaction to happen seamlessly.
Can't agree more than that, Dushyant. Very well said. But one thing I think you really put very well, it's the packaging from where you are, what actually appeals to the surrounding or the people where you live with. So as you said, certainly music is quite vibrant in Chennai and in South. But if I could go directly way up to the North and Vaishali, so what it has been, because you have started this joy of drama, you've been into it for a long time, then finally you've decided that, okay, let me do something from joy of drama. So how it's been for you? Did you have to do something differently, or like how Dushyant is telling, packaging it culturally, making it more relevant to the people and contextualizing it to the situation what people are in?
Yeah, thank you for that question. And again, hello everybody, whoever has joined us for this webinar today, and to all the panelists. Some of them I know you and some I don't, so hello to all. Yes, to answer your question, I'll tell you a little bit why I did this, because I was a theater actor for a very long time, since a very young age actually. And over the years, I realized that theater has somewhere changed me, and it has turned me into a better person. So, and I started investigating on that how did this happen? What did I do in theater that it changed me? And when I went deeper into it, I found out that theater and engaging with the arts, not just theater, engaging with any kind of art form gives you a unique way to be, just be. And all of us want to just be, because most of the time we are running around, we're doing a lot of things around, we have deadlines to meet, and then we have school projects to finish. But somewhere art allows you time. And I realized that while doing theater or music or dance, I've done all three, I could do it in my own time, and I could own that time that I did it for. So I thought, if I could do it, then why not pass it on to children? And that's how I started. And as Dushyant rightly said, that putting things into context is very, very important, especially without context, nothing works. All of us will agree over here, whoever is watching us. The context was parents. So I reached out directly to the parents, because most of the time our children are with their parents. And somehow if, I could engage the parents and the children and the teachers and bring them onto one platform, I felt that I could, see that change that happened in me, in those children. So that's how I went about it. And Joy of Drama just happened. I started with one student who was forced into my life by a mother. She was 13-year-old, and she was a victim of bullying in class, and she did not know it. We found that out. So it was very therapeutic for her and for me, and she gave me that strength to teach.
Okay, great. I'm going to swing back now over to the West again. Kiran, you have been a teacher first in a school, worked with young learners and so many students. You yourself are a dancer and a performer, and you are exceedingly proficient with the language, as you are also with communication skills and some of the other subjects. Did you know that day one, or where did it start? I mean, how does that journey of self-discovery happen, considering that there are a lot of teachers who perhaps listening to us today who might say, I'm slotted into the category of an English teacher, and how do I feel I can do something more, but I'm not so sure. So how does someone find their voice to make that step, and how easy was that for you, going from what you of course knew initially to then growing in strength and confidence from one area of teaching to the next?
Well, good evening, everyone. I think I'm a perfect example of what happens when teachers believe in you. Right from because I'm the first generation English medium learner for my family. And when I was sent to school, at a very state South Indian school by my state South Indian dad, I was blessed to be surrounded by teachers who believed that I could dance, I could sing, was good at elocution. They didn't have a problem that a Shetty girl was acing it in Marathi or Hindi. So it was, that's how it all started. Actually, very honestly, everything was put in perspective only much later when I joined college. Again, I was blessed with good teachers all around who believed in me, who encouraged and nourished, or rather they saw all the talents I did not. Then I was blessed with good employers whenever I worked under as a teacher, whether it was my first school principal ma'am, who was also my teacher at the teacher training college, then Mr. Kiran Patel, and Ranjani ma'am, Krishna ma'am. I can't just stop counting my teachers because they're all blessings. And these blessings, because of them, I think I had that confidence always that I can do this. I had a wonderful response with all the parents who believed that a dance teacher could also teach English and an English teacher could also dance. So it all kind of fused together. I was also very keen as a learner. Even till date, I believe that it's not the certification that's important, but it's what you learn as in your journey when you're gaining new insights into new subjects. So similarly, like whether it's environmental issues, which are my passion, so doing a diploma, my request to everyone would be that you need to really imbibe the philosophy of being a learner, no matter where in your stage or career you are. That's how you will then pass on to the future generations. Because if you stop learning, then that passage doesn't happen.
All right, great.
Yeah, thank you, Kiran. I need to take this question to Tracy. I know you started in 2005, Tracy, and I just want to understand, because for the audiences here and all of our audience, the majority are teachers and probably all have challenges of starting up and stuff like that. So when you started, and particularly subjects like drama and communication skills, what are the resistances generally which you faced? And I know you also teach a lot of higher level English at a C1 or a B2 level and also C2 level. So what sort of you do to motivate your kids to go for that level of language acquisition?
Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for having me here. Sachin, to answer your question very straightforward, it doesn't start at the very high levels. We have worked our way up from the 5-year-olds till they're around 15, 16-year-olds. So there are very few at the very senior level that comes to vocal for an admission. So we have the maximum number of children coming to us from the age of 5. So I'm working my way up with them, particularly in language, so that and Trinity, what's really goes in our favor is that Trinity offers us such a variety of syllabi that gives us the freedom to map each child's trajectory whichever way they want to go. So what is really wonderful is that when all the children are with us and we see them grow, like maybe 1 year it's speech and drama, the other year is communication skills, then we decide, all right, now you've done that, let's go to ISC, let's see whether you can read and write. We know you can speak. So what happens is we give them a holistic development, and yes, my main objective and us as all teachers is that somehow they need to have the staying power. So when we start there, they all move along the way, they drop off. And what happens is that they need to be brought back. And that is my first thing with parents, that yes, please take this as a stopgap, or you want only your child to learn how to communicate, or you want your child only to learn a particular poem and how to recite it. Look at it along the way from where the child begins. There is a beautiful journey, and this doesn't start with a particular age, and it doesn't end at a particular age. So that kind of understanding and having them to stay with us for these years, like I've had 5-year-olds who are now teachers with me at vocal. They've been with me 15 years, and it's like, you get such a kick out of it, that joy that you see them coming back to teach with you. And they are the best teachers. And we don't only give them a profession per se. We are opening doors and windows of opportunities for them where they're just being grabbed by universities abroad. So it is just not because they're excellent in language or they're good in speech and drama or they've done this. It is the journey that they have, all taken over the years and grown confident amongst themselves, and they have projected themselves beautifully to the world. So,
actually,
yeah.
Sorry, that brings up a very relevant point, Tracy, which was, not looking at subjects as subjects by themselves, but as looking at it as integrating it. Because we understand that a lot of parents would say, I want my child to speak well, all right, so I think he should do elocution or speech and drama. I want to put this question to Anaita, because Anaita, you've worked over so many years with so many children, and yet your own belief in teaching is different subjects at different ages. How do you view this in the context of, do you believe each subject is a subject by itself? Or how can teachers who are listening to us today understand that it's all flowing one into the other, and that we must look at perhaps the root being first growing in English, maybe solidifying that, and then growing out of that into, once your feet are firmly planted. So what are your views on that? Because you've been doing this for so long.
Yes, Dale, I agree with what you're saying right now, because I have this plan with me, which has worked beautifully. So with the very little children, I begin with their language exams. so that they have a real solid base in language, which doesn't mean I'm only doing language through the year. There are several other fun things that are happening at class. We have drama and we have performances and all of that. But your basic focus is the language. Only when they come to standard 3 or probably standard 4 is when I give them a choice, whether they now want to break out into a drama exam or a communication skills exam, or, you know, whichever other suite they'd like. But it doesn't mean that if I only do drama with one class, I'm not doing communication skills. We're doing all of it together. It only comes to the time of the examination when we realize as teachers in class, which student has that forte and which one the child would want to opt for. I don't decide that. We have observed these children through the year or through the years, and it's only a suggestion. And most often it's the right one, and that's what the child wants to do. And then they take on, they either complete all grades of communication skills or all grades of drama, because that's where their interest lies.
If I can stay on to you, Anahita,
Yeah.
because you've been talking about this whole approach of teaching. You see, majority of the teachers, particularly, I'm sure many of our participants on the webinar today would be school teachers, and they have a completely different environment. So
Right.
what you are talking right now as a practice, if we have to look at I'll not say replicating, but at least adopting some of those into a classroom environment. What is the sort of thinking you would like to share here with some of the other teachers on the attendees today?
Sure. See, you know, most importantly, at class, for me, I don't say, today I'm going to teach you grammar. Today we're going to do verbs. So it's not a grammar class. It's the spoken language over the months that the children are listening to, and that's what they then absorb so beautifully. And as teachers, we're there to keep correcting them. So the grammar, most often, sometimes I notice that they're great at a written answer in grammar probably, but do they really use that in everyday spoken English?
Absolutely.
Yeah, so it's very different then. So here, my approach is the spoken language, and it then beautifully translates into their written, instead of doing it the other way around.
Absolutely.
Okay. If I can just go to Tracy and just ask you a quick question, Tracy. To start thinking of giving up, let's say, or rather not even giving up, to starting a parallel private little practice. Let's say you've got, where you live, you've got 5 or 10 children who approach you and their parents approach you and say, can you start a practice or can you teach my child? Now, obviously, all of you have well passed that stage. You'll all have your own practices. How scary is it in the very beginning? I mean, is it one of those things where I don't know what's going to come out of this, because this is not one of those established professions that perhaps parents were, if you go and explain it to them at least 15 or 20 years ago, would encourage you and say, yes, that's just like getting a multinational bank job. This is one of those where you have to pave your own way of security. So how has that journey been for you? I mean, was it, I'm sure there have been challenges, but what can you tell us that, you know, teachers will realize that, fine, I can maybe take a measured step to start something at least small on my own?
Yes. Yes, Dale, I can speak from my own experience where I started off with 5 and I had these little ones standing in my kitchen. But let me tell you what happened was when these parents did approach me. Now, when parents do approach you, each parent is looking at a certain skill that they want their child to be imbibed with. Okay, so basically there is an understanding that, see, you've come to me for language. Now, how I teach you the language is very different from what you are expecting from maybe a school. So let's start with the basic of listening, because let us be let's be frank and accept it that all of the children who come to you, remember, the language would either be their second, third, fourth language. English is their fourth, third language. And the parents themselves don't really understand what you're going to do for the child. Their main interest is, I want my child to speak beautifully. That's the underlying statement. And they put that entire shit into your bag, saying that this is what we want. Now, how long it takes is not the question. It's like, do it. So when parents do come with such high expectations, so to speak, we as teachers, we know we have to be confident in knowing, having some kind of plan, that there has to be an integrated skills of just not recitation and rhymes and storytelling and everything. But when they go back home, whatever you may have done with them in an hour, they should be able to relate to the parent that this is what I did today, even if it's opening a book and sharing a picture talk with them. And the parents then gaining the confidence, all right, so the child has come back home stating that he has done so much, which means it's worth it. So let's go back. And every week when they come in, and they're seeing that the child is just not doing the same thing, because the first thing, the question the parents will throw at you is, are you going to do just one poem for the next 6 months? Are you going to do one story just for the next 6 months? So we have to assure them by putting in, as many activities as we can, to see that every time the child goes back home. I only see parents at the time of admissions. And I only see parents at the time of withdrawals. Other than that, I have not seen parents, and I don't meet them. However much I would love to interact with them. But it's their drivers and it's their maids that you more or less interact with. And that is how, you may send them a message if there's a storybook that has to come. So let me assure you that you're not going to be bombarded with facing the parents all the time. I mean, this is the time when you will meet them, but the children will go back home and relate everything that has happened word by word. Believe me when I say it. So we have to be absolutely 100% in what we do and how we teach.
Excellent. So if I can move from parents to schools, Dushyant, I'd like to bring in, because Kriya Shakti has been primarily working with schools. So what you guys are doing, how do you, because when you approach a school and when you're approaching with a subject like drama, how do you really actually talk to the school, and what is it that you convey as an idea which the schools buy in?
See, I think talking to schools, and this word you used is the perfect word, the buy-in. I think all teachers who are listening right now, I think the hardest to crack is your first school or first parent. After that, the kids or the schools will talk for you. So you don't have to necessarily have to do any talking. And if it is working, if your pedagogy, your content, what you're delivering inside class is working for one child or one school, it will definitely work, and you can customize it for any community. So at Kriya, what we do is we treat every school as a community. And taking away from what I spoke last time in terms of putting it contextually, even if there's a cultural difference between Mumbai and Chennai, there are cultural differences in terms of how learning is adapted in each school itself, within the city or within a certain geographical area. So I think the biggest advantage and disadvantage for something like performing arts learning or drama learning is the fact that it's not governed by a certain grammar that, say, music or language learning is kind of governed by. So in a sense, you can define that grammar. There are rules, but there's no grammar. Yeah. So and those rules are also quite flexible in terms of how you can bend them to your. So ultimately, what the sell is or what the buy-in should be vis-a-vis schools, which is a huge base The thing is, what is the outcome? Ultimately, what are you going to get out of these classes has to be very tangible. So far, I think the reason why it's not been adopted at scale in India, or there is a certain uh, need for us to convince parents or convince this one, is everything which is not language, which is in the arts, sort of operates in the intangible in terms of outcome. So we need to make sure that we put our children out there, make the stage theirs, make them available to transcend and use these skills that they're imbibing, and make it very, very tangible for anybody to see, not just the parents, you know. And I'm not talking about making better actors or making better directors or making better writers. I'm saying whatever your choice of profession may be, these skills will come in handy. And that's where the buy-in should be. If you're a better chartered accountant because of the dramatic arts, are you a better banker because of the dramatic arts? Are you a better teacher for the dramatic arts? So that's where the cell should. The fact that it supplements what you learn in the traditional schematic of things inside a school, and makes you stand apart without necessarily, and this is the most important point, without necessarily having to move over somebody else, you know, not at the cost of someone else. So there's a certain empathy in terms of teaching arts as well. Your moving up is not at the cost of someone else going down. So that is a very, very important aspect of what theater and dramatic studies would do. And in that sense, and as Tracy said, it's very important to travel with the craft. It's not something that you need to watch in isolation. Okay, he's done dramatic arts, he's got a certificate in grade 2, great, he's a dramatist. No, it doesn't work like that. You travel with it. And I think it's imbibed in our culture. Yeah, if you look at it, arts training, why is it such a hard sell when it comes to dramatic arts, but not so much when it comes to Hindustani or Carnatic music, which is so entrenched in an institutionalized format where you have to come in, you'll have to do your arangetram after a few years and all that. So it's almost an unwritten code or a system that is prevalent, and in a certain way, or not in a very high profile way, institutionalized as well. So what the real answer is to your question is, Sachin, how do we institutionalize dramatic art? I think that should be the question, and that's what you should be answering, which is the outcome. If we have an answer vis-a-vis the outcome, and this code of how we reach that outcome is written for each and every child, each and every community, and each and every space in which you're dealing with, make sure that the plan is there and execute accordingly. Once you see that the outcome is coming, then you just have to pick the best practices from there and apply it in other places. I think that's how.
Okay, thanks, Dushyant. Vaishali, there's a question that's come in actually from two different parents and teachers, where they're asking, you know, I mean, so obviously you are a performance artist, so you can sing, you can dance, you can act, you speak, all right? One of them actually holds a Cert TESOL, or a qualification in English, and is asking, do I necessarily have to be good at all of those other things to teach children to gain confidence in that area? So that is one. And two is also, you see, parents sometimes would ask teachers, so what have you done? Okay. Or how do we know that you are the trusted person with whom our child should be? All of you have overcome that challenge. Okay. I know all of you have also done very many qualifications, both from Trinity and outside as well. But how would you help a teacher today who, let's say, is an English language teacher, and who through this discussion has realized that I don't only have to teach English. In fact, English is probably the bedrock among which communication will happen, and drama can happen through it, and singing can happen through it. How would you, or what would you tell teachers like that?
Yeah, thank you. I think it's Shalini who's asking this question. I just saw the chat box. Thank you, Shalini, for that question. Yeah. Shalini, what you're talking about is drama in education. Yes, you can teach these subjects called like drama through English, or English through drama. You can do vice versa. So that is something that you can do, but that is a different topic altogether. It's going to take a lot of time for me to, talk about that. But the answer is yes, you can do it. You can do it. I think we have another webinar coming up next week Shalini, you must attend that because that is drama and education, and you will get your answer there. Dushan spoke about empathy. I really liked what he said about every school as a community. Very, very important. Because that is very important for us to understand whenever we are teaching in schools, or when we are approaching a school to teach, what works in one school might not work in another. So this is a great point, and I take this point. Thank you, Dushan, for making this point. The second thing that Dushan also mentioned is empathy. And because we work from a point of empathy, and drama or the arts, it enhances the way you empathize with people around you. And parents are also part of that. I'm sorry, Tracy, that parents, you see parents once when the child comes and the ones when the child leaves, but I see my parents every 2 months. I do workshops for them where I set the expectations right, because all of us are different. As I told you, before that I was talking about time. It gives us our time. All of us have our different individual time, and so do parents, so do children. So because we are torchbearers of education and performing arts education, it is expected that we perform or do or teach in a certain way. But where is that expectation coming from? Like Tracy very rightly said that parents want their children to be beautiful speakers. But I think as teachers we need to go beyond that. What do parents actually want? They want to be seen through their children. And somewhere, if we can empathize with that part of the parent, when the parent comes to you with their children, make the parent a part of the learning. Because you can't do much in these times, especially during these times, because COVID has kind of brought teachers, parents, and children on one platform. The child is doing an online class and the parent is right there, So I think if we can include the parents in our journey, the journey will be far more, I think, enriching. It will be also foolproof, because you can work together to help the child build his or her own character. At the end of the day, we want the child to shine in some way. And to find how the child shines, you need the parent. You cannot do it yourself. I don't feel you can do it yourself. Because in today's times, there is so much of control over a teacher, especially teachers who are teaching in schools. There's so much of foundation of time. And you have to spend like 30 minutes with 30 students. It's madness. It is madness. So what you could do is create programs, your drama program. When you create it, include the parent. Do workshops with them. Let them do all the exercises that you do with your children. They love it. I'm telling you, I have done it. I've been doing it for the last 6 years now, and it works beautifully. All the parents will be on your side, and they will do extra work for you at home to help the child. Thank you.
I'm going to take a completely different digression from what the very interesting subject you've been talking about, Vaishali, but more on a personal front to Pervin. And Dale said that you would be talking about it. So can you elaborate a little bit about the whole person approach which you adopt in your teaching practice?
Sachin, that's very much like Kimberly was saying, and in fact, all our panelists are saying about working on a holistic approach, working on all aspects of a child's personality, because how a child communicates, or how an adult communicates for that matter, is a reflection of his personality. So when we work with kids, we, as most teachers do, we should keep in mind the idea that we are molding their entire characters. We're not just teaching them drama or speech or communication or a particular area, so to speak. So we are kind of molding their whole personalities. And that's what I mean when I talk about that whole person approach. So I'm not just doing subject specific work in my class. We'll talk about how the kids interact, what goes on in their homes. They bring everything to the classroom. So like Kimberly, I don't make a lot of contact with parents. I have parent meetings once in 6 months or so, but other than that, not really. So because I want to be the person who's on the kids' side. And I think in a way that not to say that I'm against the parents, of course, but you know, I become the kids' person, so to speak. So there's a sense of ownership. You make relationships like that. My students I call them my kids all the time, because that is what they are. They at some point, the word student kind of goes out the window, and they become my kids at some point. Not just my friends, all areas of my life are kind of taken over by the kids, not in an invasive sort of way, but more in an integrated sort of way. So they become a part of my life. And I think that's how I end up influencing the kids. So not only to do drama work and speech work, and there are all of that stuff kind of becomes peripheral eventually, but the influence that I have been able to wield on their lives in general becomes supremely important eventually. So that the drama, the communications, the language, all that are just means to an end, which is allowing the student to be the person that he can be in the best possible avatar that he can be it. So basically what we're doing is trying to provide them those skills to make them the best of what they can be. So we're not talking here about making them what we want them to be. So when we use the word mold, often people tend to think that you want them to be a particular way, which is not really true. Every kid is different. Every person is different. And the whole idea is that the teacher recognizes that, and the same rule that applies to one kid may not apply to another. The same rule that applies to one adult may not apply to another. So give them the space and the leeway to be who they want to be, but give them the skills to be able to communicate that, and as a result to project their personalities in the world outside. You know, I think that's the bottom line. So it's not so much about what we teach. Of course, we're using that. So this is just a means to an end, so far as I see it, you know.
Thank you, Pravin.
Yeah.
I'm going to ask everybody who's actually attending. I know we are about a minute away from finishing, and obviously this discussion, quite frankly, can go on for another hour. But if I may, just with your permission, ask you to just type in the chat box if we can go on for another 10 minutes. If you can just say yes, please, then we will go on for another 10 minutes. If not, we will cut it short and start to wrap up. Yes, sure. Okay, great. Thank you so much for that validation. All right. I'm going to kind of start to wind this and close this down. And this is the hardest part, both for me to ask you to do this, as well as for you as teachers to probably do this. Given the fact that when I see all of you on my screen, I realize that between all of you, there's over 100 years of experience in teaching these subjects, all right? And like I said, probably Sachin and myself are the only ones who look over 18 or 19, all right? And the rest of you still look like you're 18. Please excuse me. All right, so I'm gonna ask you also one more thing, and this is going to each one of you in, you've got exactly 1 minute to answer that. Your one student in all these years, all right, who, and I'm not saying your favorite student or whatever, but just now on top of mind, that one student that you can think of who really came and had this transformation and perhaps did a couple of the exams, went abroad and studied, is doing something with their life. Maybe they're into the environment protection, maybe they're into science or whatever. If you can just tell us in a quick 1 minute about one of your students. Let's start with Kiran.
Thank you. I don't want to be proud here, but I have more than one student who has done a lot of different things. But
Given,
altogether,
that's why I said, I mean, it's unfortunate to say that there's time holding us to one student, but please forgive me for that. Because if we spoke for another hour, we'd all have at least 10 students.
I know. So
Probably
let's, yes. So I'm going to talk about a very special student of mine. The reason is because she also had to swim upwards, just like, mirroring this upward stream swimming that I have done personally. So the most expected, achievement oriented, when people don't expect much out of you, you give up on yourself too. So the reason why I'm going to speak about this child is she had many personal battles, including learning disability to go, least expectations from parents, schools, everyone, except we had both set goals for each other. And I'm very proud that she's helped me grow along with growing herself. And she allowed me to dream for her. She's living that dream. She's done double honors despite all the learning disability in literature and in history of art. She's pursuing her master's in curating art. And all this while nobody thought that she would ever do something with her life. Least of all, when she started her journey, because she doesn't come back from that kind of a background. So, but the support the parents gave, the trust and the faith that the parents shared, and now where she is, it's a win-win time for all of us.
Thank you. Anaitra?
Yes, one of my senior pupils who's now a teacher herself, and she said to me when she started that, don't worry, Miss Anaita, I'm going to be true to the craft just as you have been.
That's the ultimate compliment.
That's the ultimate.
I agree. Thank you. Pervin?
For me, it would have to be a pair.
Okay.
Of course, there are heaps and heaps and heaps who've done all kinds of wonderful things with their lives. But this pair is special to me because they come out of a slum. I put them both into regular language class as little kids. The little girl started when she was 5 and the boy when he was about 11 maybe. And the boy is today a shippy, just bought himself a flat, turned his whole life around. The little girl is at Sophia College, just finished with that, is going on to TIS to do her master's, where also their cousin did it from before them. And I think those are my greatest achievement. They're not great in terms of the kind of qualifications that they have as yet, but they're still working on them. But I think what they've done most dynamically is turn their lives around. And I think for me, that has been the most important area. And what it is that has made them do it is the communication skills. They're smart kids on their own. There are lots of smart kids in the slums, but what made it for these two kids is their communication skills. And that's what changed their whole lives. And and they're in another space altogether. And they still live in the slum. Their parents still live in the slum, but they're well on their way out of there. And I think for that for me, that has to be a very big achievement, on the parts of these. Of course, they're fabulous by themselves. But I think that little thing that I did for them, the little boost that they got was their communication skills. And that has taken them to another plane altogether. There have been quite a few like them, but I think these two have been the biggest for me.
Excellent.
And they've achieved the most. Yeah.
Thank you. Tracy?
Yes, Dale, to be very frank with you, I have many of my students who have walked back to vocal in the capacity of being teachers. So they are teaching with me, and it gives me immense pleasure to see that. But now this is coming to you from a mother who has seen her daughter from the time she was 5 grow up, do her ATCL, and now is in a position to walk hand in hand with me and really run vocal as an institute. And for me, it's very heartening that I have somebody to take the legacy on. You see, and she has the same aspirations of molding children from all the different backgrounds and taking them into directions where they wouldn't have ever imagined, and they wouldn't have done it alone, to be very frank with you. They've always held, our hands and we walked them through. But Lisa is, I'm very proud as a mother to say that, she is now well on her way to doing her licentiate. And very soon, I'm hoping that one day she shares the screen with you in years to come. Thank you.
All right. Okay. Dushant.
So very quickly, I think, very quickly, two people. I think one in terms of two for very different contexts. First, I think when 2 years ago, I was teaching a child a play, and he was a very quiet child, but I gave him a pretty big role. In fact, I gave him the role of Dronacharya, the teacher. So he was very excited that he got such a big role in the play, and he was doing the scene, and everybody, was wondering why this chap got the role. But something in him, the way he did the audition, the way he did the reading, told me that this guy's got it. But when he started doing the scene, we realized he has a very bad stammer. I mean, stopping him, and he had a little, I feel very emotional talking about it now, but every single time he did stammer, he would stop the scene, look at me and say, sorry, sir, and then he'd go back to doing the scene. It was heartbreaking. And every single time I had to patiently just sit down and say, it doesn't matter. You don't have to apologize for it. And every single time, having said that, and obviously inside me, I'm going through a lot because I'm wondering whether this would happen on stage come the show, or once they go into the exam, would something happen? And, would they be judged for it? Because, we are, as a society, very good at making that a taboo, right? I mean, we are experts at that if we are not experts at anything else. But allowing him to go through that and telling him there is nothing to be apologetic about, something that you have no control over. And you can take your time to get control over it, and that time, that empathy, that skill that we can provide as drama teachers is something no other form or pedagogy in our current educational system allows for. And come the show, he aced it. His parents were literally in tears, and he didn't stammer out one single thing. And you know what? At the end of it, I told him, you've not overcome anything. Even if you did, you don't know, I don't know, but maybe Drona stammered. Who knows? I mean, so as a character, maybe that might have been his thing, man. I mean, that's something that we have to do it. And that's the inclusive nature of, there's no right, wrong. You just have to travel with everyone. And that is one student who we really remember. Another one, I think it's been a great week for us at Kriya, because we yesterday onboarded one of our stalwart students who was a amazing writer and actor in one of the schools we used to train 8 years ago. And now she's come back from the UK, having studied dramatic arts in a university there. And she's come back. She was planning to do her master's, but of course, COVID had other plans. So she's back in India, and she said, I can't think of anywhere else to work but with Kriya. And this week, where a student has become a trainer along with us, a team of 25, very emotional and extremely gratifying that we are part of creating an ecosystem that kind of feeds to other people.
Absolutely. Vaishali?
Yeah, so the same girl who came into my life and helped me become a facilitator. When she came to me, she was already bullied, not just by her classmates, but also by many of her teachers who used to teach her drama, and told several times that you're not good enough. So that girl today, she is at the Columbia University. She's studying sociology, and she has come back due to the COVID thing. She's come back, and she and we already have done multiple workshops for children in the slums and other places. Already we started it before she went to Columbia, but then she's in Columbia. But Columbia is not that's not what we are looking at. Yeah. We're looking at how drama and doing an exam. I mean, I think when you do an exam, you have an objective and you have a self-assessment that you do as a teacher, and also an assessment for the child. That empowers you to an extent that it gives you the ability to say that, no, I don't doubt myself anymore. That little part of doubt, self-doubt that sheds through one successful examination is what actually pushes all these children. I think I'm the youngest over here. Dushyant and I are the youngest over here. So we still have our children to do great things outside college. But yes, today we have, I also have two interns, two of my students who are joining me as interns. And one of my students has also started an app for English learning through drama. He's in 11th standard and he's developed the app, and I'm working with him on that. So thank you.
Thank you. By the way, unfortunately, we never got a chance to talk about Dushyant's app, which is just...
Oh, it's amazing. I have it downloaded on my phone.
It's called Kriya Play. It's hot off the shelves, where you can actually, and he spent a significant amount just getting it in shape, and so that you can actually do virtual drama classes and, you know, work off your own scenes and so on and so forth. And more than that, all the content that has come with that. I mean, I want to firstly thank each and every one of you, literally from the bottom of our hearts, because this whole thing that we tried to do, or we're attempting to do, is firstly get teachers to talk so that other teachers are inspired. Because very often a lot of the good teachers somewhere give up because they feel that they're all alone, and the system sometimes does not support it. So this, hopefully going forward, will always be that for a forum where we can always do that. So I want to thank you, starting with Anita, Pervin, Kiran, Tracy, Dushyant, Vaishali, for giving of your time. It's really, truly very gracious. And I say this on behalf of all the other people attending, all the teachers attending this. And I'm very sure that this is the first of many, many more to come. Except that I've learned one thing today is that we firstly must schedule this for probably a 2-hour session, because there's so much to share. The other thing that came out right through is, of course, the fact that it really takes life skills to get you to where you are in life, irrespective of whichever pathway you take. And if those skills are in place, then there's nowhere to go except up. And up is not necessarily a conquering of a title or a monument or a pedigree. Up is just better in society, for society kind of living. You know, so I want to thank you all for doing that. I'm going to just quickly wind up this session. I want to, since all of you over here have got a diploma level qualification from Trinity, I also want to announce right now that we've got and I'm going to, if you don't mind, just share a screen. We are making live the alumni network for Trinity College London, India. So this is actually the page on our Indian website. That's the link to your right, as you can see. I urge you, please, and I'm going to post it in the chat box in a second. Of course, it's not very difficult to follow the link, where you can tell us about not just the last exam you did, but the last 6 exams that you've done. And I know when I spoke of all of you who have over 100 years of teaching experience, I was trying to do a back of the envelope calculation, and my figure tells me that you'll have sent up in all these many years close to 200,000 students. So yes, so please, starting with yourselves, log in, join the alumni network, because if today we are talking to teachers, can you imagine if tomorrow we can talk to all those who've done an assessment and get them to share their views of how their lives changed or what did they make of their lives. So right down, there's one page on the last part of the form. It says, please tell us something about yourself, your work and role and your learnings, etc. So we want to make this completely about community around, and we are happy to play host over here as Trinity College London to be able to do that. On that note, I also want to tell you, just a reminder, teachers, that this is all about the cone of learning. So while you have enjoyed what a lot of the other teachers have shared, please remember the active phase of learning happens over here. The 70 and 90%, so to speak, is when you actually get off and start to do. All right. Speaking of next week, this is what we are talking about. Drama in Education, a curtain raiser. All right, so please join in. We're calling it a curtain raiser because this is a very wide subject, but we do definitely want to touch upon it at the beginning a little bit and be able to build it off from there. So on that note, I'm going to say thank you. I'm going to just post the link. I'm going to exit the sharing right now.
Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you, Kiran. I'm going to just post the link to register for next week's webinar. Please do that. Just give me a second. If I can do that in the chat. There you go. That's the link that you can register on, which is, we're moving the time, by the way, to 4 o'clock because we understand from feedback that it's a more convenient time. There are many teachers who are still teaching till 3 and 3:30 on a Friday. So we move this time back to 4 o'clock. I also want to share with you that from the first week of August, we're adding one additional day of webinars devoted towards the subjects. All right, so in our next webinar, we will put up the schedule for the whole month of August, where there will be 8 webinars dealing on subjects as well as dealing on bigger, larger issues of education, skills, and life. There is, as my one request, please, as we finish this webinar, you will get a pop-up link to give us your feedback. Remember, that is the only payment that keeps us going one webinar to the next webinar. So please keep your thoughts going and your encouragement flowing. And if we have to be critical, please be that also, so that it helps us be on point when it comes to sharing with you all that is going through our mind. On that note, I want to say a big thank you once again to all the panelists on behalf of Sachin and myself and all of us at Trinity College London. And we look forward to seeing you next Friday, 4 p.m. Posting once again the link for next week's webinar, Drama in Education, and some very, very exciting topics coming up, including using speech and drama as a tool of teaching and looking at how to transition to online teaching and so on and so forth. So I don't want to give away too much. You wait for that schedule. All right. But thank you for being with us this evening. And thank you for indulging us for that additional 15 minutes so that we could give you so much more. On that note, thank you and have a great weekend. Stay safe and be safe.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks very much.
Bye-bye. Thank you so
Bye,
much.
everyone. Bye.
Thank you.